And we're back discussing railroads here in the Columbia Gorge with Jerry Tanquist. And Jerry, I want to start off this segment talking a bit about the portage railroads and the significance of them, and also some of the challenges they faced, and also some of the controversy almost. So let's take it and run with it.
Okay. Well, the first shipping up and down the gorge was on the river, but that was limited because at Cascades the ships couldn't get past those rapids. And they built locks there at the Cascades, and they were finished in 1893. So then the shipping could come all the way to the Dalles by boat.
This is at Cascade Locks?
Yeah, Cascade Locks.
Okay.
But before that, the canal was done, they had a portage railroad there, and built in 1862. But in 1863, they realized when they got to the Dalles, they still couldn't get around Celilo on the river. So another portage railroad was built. And the boats had to pull over to the shore, unload their produce, their passengers, freight, whatever, onto a little train and move on to above Celilo is about a 12-mile railroad, and unload onto another steamship, and then that stuff would go on up the river.
Wow.
Well, that was very inefficient, and people knew for a long time that they needed something better than that. And the first thing that happened was in 1880. A railroad financier in Portland said, well, I'm going to build a railroad up the gorge, and he did that, and it was called the Oregon Rail and Navigation, ORNN.
ORNN.
And it was built from Portland through the Dalles to Wallula up in near Tri-Cities and connected with the Great Northern. So then they had a railroad route through that eliminated the need for the portage railroads. And the portage railroad that ran from the Dalles past Celilo, built in 1863, it was a 5-foot gauge. It wasn't quite standard gauge. It was a little wider. So when they came with the railroad in 1880, they took up just one track, moved it over about 3.5 inches, and made it standard gauge. And took them only 4 hours with a crew of 100 guys. And they made that railroad part of their main line.
Oh.
And that segment of the portage railroad is the oldest continuously used piece of route in the Union Pacific system, in the whole system.
Really? To this day? And
to
it's
this
still
day,
used?
Still used.
To this day. Wow, okay.
So just a little trivia history there.
Yeah.
When they eliminated the portage railroad, of course, and so then the railroad had complete control of traffic up and down the river, because the boats could get to the Dalles, but they couldn't get around Celilo Falls, and the railroad had the monopoly on it, and they raised the rates and made them pay plenty for whatever was being shipped.
You didn't have any options. I mean, they had a monopoly.
That's right.
Okay.
And businessmen in Portland said, we've got to do something about that. We need a canal. And so for 30 years they pushed on it before it got started building in 1905. It took them 30 years to get Congress enacted and motivated and moved to produce the money and the plan. And then it took 10 years to build the canal. And the builders of the canal and these sponsors knew that they couldn't wait 10 years, because the railroad had the monopoly and was strangling all the producers up and down the way. And so we said we need another portage railroad to provide immediate competition to the railroads. And so that was built. The second one was built in about the same area, parallel to the Union Pacific.
Okay.
But it did the same thing. The ships would come into the Dalles and land and unload their stuff and back onto the ships at the upper end. And when that portage railroad came in, the main line in the Union Pacific realized we can't handle this, and they dropped their rate. So it was effective that way. But that second portage railroad also had a second purpose, in that they had to convince Congress that they really needed the canal, that Congress appropriated money each year to continue to work on it. And they had to demonstrate to Congress that we're shipping thousands of tons of stuff up the river on this portage railroad, which was very inefficient. A canal would be perfect. And so Congress kept putting the money in, and they got the canal built, and it was built under cost. And in 1915, when it was completed, they had a big celebration, of course, to open the canal and make the river all the way from Portland all the way to the Idaho border was navigable.
Oh, okay.
And the portage railroad, as soon as the canal was finished, that railroad was over with, because it had served its purpose, and the track was taken up, and the canal served the purpose that it was intended for.
Okay. Now, are those canals? Those are they gone now with the dams?
Basically, they're gone. There's evidence of the canal here in the Dalles. If right below the main administrative building at the Dalles Dam, there's if one looks at the waterfront, there you can see the gate where the canal used to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And at the upper end, up at Salilo Park, there's a boat basin. If you're looking out across the river to the north, and you look around to the left, there's a kind of a big bay that's a boat basin, and that's the opening. That's the original opening of the upper end of the canal.
Oh, okay. So that's where they would exit out going upriver.
Yeah. Oh. And so that's still a piece of history that's still visible if you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And the Salilo Bridge. This is a little footnote. They built that in 1912, and they crossed the canal and the railroad, and the span on the bridge would swing open for the canal. But when they built the Dalles Dam, why the river came up so high, that wouldn't work. So that now they built the lift on the bridge. That was 1957.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Another little pice of historical trivia there.
Absolutely. Well, good. Well, and I want to talk about a very important historical piece of history or historical fact of this race to get rails laid going up the Deschutes River and sort of the competition and stuff. So we'll discuss that when we come back from the break. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.